Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try talking with the microphone, but I'm actually very terrible at it. So just yell out if I start dropping it too low and you can't hear me. First of all, good morning everyone and happy Friday. Thank you for coming. I was very nervous that no one would show up, but it's nice to see a room full of people. Also, thank you Phoebe, oh there you are, for the lovely introduction. I'm not sure if I'm blushing from that or from the pure terror of speaking to a room full of 60 people, but anyway. A few Creative Morning talks ago, the lovely Amy Willis kickstarted things by warning everyone about a red splotchy rash that creeps up her neck when she's feeling extremely passionate or nervous about something. I would like to offer the same warning today because I too suffer from said red splotchy rash, hence the turtleneck and complete coverage. So if you do see it, don't be alarmed. I'm totally accustomed to it and hopefully it will go away if ignored. So Phoebe touched on what we spoke about back in February. Back in February we sat down for coffee and Phoebe told me all about Creative Mornings Toowoomba, her newest project, and it was at that coffee catch-up that she asked me if I would firstly like to be a part of the volunteer committee, which was a resounding yes, and secondly if I would like to be a speaker at one of the events. Back then it was a resounding yes. Feeling a little bit nervous today about it, but hopefully at the end I will be happy about that yes. So here we are today, 7 events in, and it's finally my turn to share my take on the global theme, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is flow. So before I start, I thought I'd share a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. There's lots of lovely familiar faces in the room, but there's plenty of people that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, so that's really nice also. So I grew up in a small country town about 4 hours southwest of Toowoomba. I'm not sure if many of you know St George, Queensland. There's about 3,000 people there, I think. I grew up on a farm and I had a typical country kid childhood. So I have very fond memories of learning to drive, not long after I learnt to walk, not on main roads of course, of bringing home all sorts of animals, think fox cubs, baby goats, kangaroos, just to name a few, thinking that my parents would actually let me keep them. And generally just enjoying a typical country kid childhood, which I have to thank for so many of my values today. Come high school, I was shipped off to boarding school here in Toowoomba. I went to St Ursula's College. My parents really wanted me to be exposed to the opportunities that unfortunately just aren't there in a small country town like St George. After school, I graduated. I made a pretty big decision to move to Italy, completely alone. Did not know a word of Italian when I moved over there. I worked as an au pair for a year and I came back nearly fluent in Italian and it was literally the greatest thing that I could have ever done for myself. I came home after a very incredible year away, living way outside my comfort zone, ready to start my law degree. So from a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a solicitor. I had my timeline very well planned out and into my degree I dove. But life had other plans for me. I ended up falling into a marketing role whilst I was studying, and in that role I just fell in love with everything social media and marketing. Still though, I didn't think it would affect my career path. I still thought I'd be a solicitor at the end of it, so I carried on studying. In another plot twist, just weeks before Christmas, I went into work and was sat down with my colleagues and told that from 5 p.m. that day I didn't have a job anymore. So that threw another sort of spanner in the works. But being mere weeks out from Christmas, I was trying to be a little bit chilled and composed about it, and it's like, no, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to look for a job in a few weeks' time and just really focus on law next year. In that period, a couple of connections that I'd made in that role reached out to me and asked if I was interested in doing a few little marketing related activities just in the interim while I looked for a job. Fast forward a couple of years and here I am. I'm running a little baby marketing consultancy called ELM Media and Marketing, and I say baby because we're literally just a few weeks off turning 2 years old. So those couple of little marketing activities turned into big marketing activities that led to more work from other local businesses, and it just ended up that I didn't need to polish up that resume that I had intended to. My career is my absolute passion, and I feel so lucky to do something that I love every single day. And the little path that led me there, it wasn't perfect, but to me it all worked out perfectly in the end. So when Phoebe sent through the list of themes that we had to choose from way back at the start of the year, the word flow really stood out to me. Not just because October is the greatest month of the entire year, i.e. my birthday month, but because I'd felt like I'd really found my flow since opening ELM. Since choosing that theme, I've lived through what I would probably call one of the most formative years of my life. I've faced a lot of personal challenges this year that have really pushed me outside of my comfort zone and really forced me to grow an incredible amount. So when it came to sitting down to write this speech, it took quite a different angle to what I'd anticipated way back when I met for that coffee with Phoebe. And I suppose that's the beauty of life. You never know where you are going to be a year from now. So what does flow really mean? As you're going to see, I don't have very many slides, so don't get too excited about this. So from a psychological standpoint, a flow state is very simply being in the zone. It's a mental state in which a person is completely immersed in the activity that they're doing. Have you ever sat at your laptop researching a topic of interest, thinking that you were there for a mere 10 minutes, only to look at the clock and see that it had been hours? That is a flow state. So I'd like you to take a second just to think about the things in your life that really get you into that flow state. It could be cooking. You may find yourself completely immersed in the kitchen to a point where time slips away from you. It could be during your morning run. That 5 kilometres may just be the one point in your day where you get out of your own head and really focus entirely on the task at hand. For me, it would be simply surviving, but for you, it may be a little bit different. You may dip into a state of flow each time you pick up your favourite book, losing track of everything around you and just completely immersing yourself in the pages in front of you. Take a second to think about what induces that flow state for you. Will I change my page? You may not have the answer. You may be looking for that thing still, and that is also completely okay. For me, as I said, I'd really found my flow in ELM. Every day I would wake up energised, raring to go. I'd sit at my desk and the work would literally flow from me until all of a sudden it was dark outside and another day had come to a close. I'd found my flow through a career that I was extremely passionate about. But I am not here to brag about how much I love my job and to fill your ears with fluff around finding your passion and beaming with happiness every day. Instead, I want to talk about what happens when you dip out of that flow state, and I'm talking about it from experience. I'll be the first to admit that I live a very privileged life. I have all the basic necessities that one needs to survive, plus a number of luxuries. I'm surrounded by amazing friends, surrounded by amazing family, and I have a job that I love. But that doesn't mean that I don't face my own level of personal challenges, as we all do. As mentioned earlier, this year presented me with a few of those. They are what myself and most people would refer to as first world challenges. First world problems, rather. But they really threw me out of that state of flow and really made me reassess where I was at. The thing about dipping out of a state of flow when the flow state is, I guess, directly relating to your career is that work pays the bills and the show has to go on. So the easy thing to do would be to give yourself some time, let that flow state just organically come back to you when you're ready, but I really didn't have that luxury. I needed to stay on. I needed to stay on for my clients. I needed to keep dreaming up creative ideas, and I needed to keep my finger on the pulse. It can be a really jarring thing, especially as a creative, which I'm sure a lot of you are, to one day have all the inspiration and ideas just flowing from you, and then wake up the next and feel like you almost have to painfully extract them. But it's absolutely normal, and it is absolutely okay. For me, I felt like I really needed to dip out of that state of flow. I needed to go through some changes and push through some challenging things to really get to the next level and to find a whole nother world of inspiration and to grow as a business owner. I see some of you nodding, and I'm assuming that's because you've probably been there. I know I've had conversations with a lot of people in this room that this year especially have really felt that. Dipping out of your creative flow and wondering if it will ever come back is also a really scary thing. It may not just be a case of wondering how to get back into it. It may be the case of fearing that it literally will never come back. I hate to break it to you, I don't have a magic solution. I'm simply a 25-year-old girl who's speaking from her own experience, hoping that when you inevitably do dip out of your state of flow, which, if you've been lucky enough to find it, can be a pretty jarring thing, you'll know that it's okay, that you are not a failure, you are absolutely normal, and you'll find your way again. Because I think that's the most important thing to know. We're living in the age of the social media highlight reel. We wake up, we check our phones, and we see the best bits of everyone else's lives. And it couldn't be more prevalent in the business world. For me, I found myself caught in this really yucky comparison trap where I was watching my peers online who were oozing positivity and success, and quite honestly, I felt like a little bit of a fraud. I was watching them document their days and document their successes, and it was really hard to watch when I felt like I had been there just mere weeks ago and was now struggling to do something that had come so naturally to me. But that's the thing, we very rarely share our own struggles publicly, and most of the people that I was comparing myself to, they had been there. They'd gone through a period of 0 to no inspiration, of feeling like the day-to-day was a little more mundane than usual, or that the fire inside them was a little dim where it once roared. One of my favourite quotes is, "Don't compare your behind the scenes with somebody else's highlight reel." And I think that's something that we can all probably admit to doing a little bit more than we should. I think there's a misconception that a creative person is creative all the time, that a songwriter is ready to write music at the drop of a hat, that a writer just has words oozing out of them onto their paper 24/7, that a naturally creative person could just enter a state of flow and essentially create whenever their heart desired. And that misconception is what causes that dip out of your state of flow to be so jarring, when really we should be embracing it for the opportunity that I think it presents. I really struggled when I realised the new path that this speech was taking, because I felt like I really needed to hop up here, as Phoebe would know, and offer an antidote of some sort, to leave you with the recipe to finding your flow or getting it back if you've lost it. But as I was writing, I realised that it was actually just all about sharing a personal experience and hoping that someone else can maybe feel a little less alone when or if they find themselves in a similar position. That being said, I am going to share some of the things that I believe are vital parts of the flow recipe, things that really need to be working in harmony before I can even think about finding my flow. And hopefully you can relate to some of them. And if not, I would really urge you to think about what they may be for you. Firstly, and I think most importantly, cut yourself some damn slack. We're all humans and we simply can't be on all the time. And quite frankly, no one expects us to be. Often we're the hardest on ourselves, and I know that the expectations that I set for myself are so much higher than the expectations that anyone else has set for me, and I'm sure many of you can probably relate. So when you're having a day or a period where you're lacking in inspiration or creativity, just sit with it. Just get what you need to get done, and don't beat yourself up if on a good day you could have done it in half the amount of time that you did it today, for example. Another part of the puzzle that is imperative for me is exercise. It sounds ridiculous, but I am truly the happiest and feel the most together when I am in a consistent exercise routine. For me, it has nothing to do with aesthetics and everything to do with the mental clarity and stress relieving benefits that exercise gives me. If I've moved my body and challenged my mind through exercise before I start my workday, I am in a much better place. So for me, that's become a real non-negotiable. And I think it's really helped me sort of get back on track, I suppose. Thirdly, pay attention to your own habits. Take note of when you're most productive throughout the day and structure your daily tasks around these times. Be completely intentional with your work and you will win. Something else that is so important is surrounding yourself with positive people who lift you up and encourage you to grow. There's a famous quote that reads, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future," and it couldn't be more accurate. The people you surround yourself with attribute to your success and your happiness more than you possibly realise. And last, but absolutely not least, you simply will not find your flow where passion does not exist. If you hate your job, you simply won't find your flow in it. Unfortunately, not everyone has the luxury of working in their dream role right now, and that's okay. But whilst you wait to get to that point, find your flow in other things. In life outside of work, in your hobbies, in your relationships. And I truly believe that if you nail that, the rest will follow. I'm still not 100% in flow, but I can feel it coming. I'm almost back there. But for right now, I'm basking in the lessons that I've learnt this year and the amount that I've grown through what I suppose would be referred to as a little bit of a slump. So I hope that you can take something small away from my own experience, and maybe you've been through something similar and have a few little light bulb moments that have popped up today. If you are though sitting there feeling a little less than because you can't think of a moment in time where you've been in a state of flow, don't. Take this as an opportunity to find that flow. Spend some time today or across the weekend just pondering over where your passions lie, and maybe do a little environmental audit to see if there's anything that may potentially be in the way of your flow. If you would like to learn a little bit more about the flow state specifically, beyond my very light scrape of the surface, I would really recommend watching the TED Talk on the topic. I got a lot out of it when I was sort of trying to get myself in the zone to write this, and I think you all really would as well. I'm going to try to pronounce this guy's name because it took me so long to practice it that it would be rude not to. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he's considered the founder of the flow theory. And his TED Talk on the topic is really inspiring. So please go give that a listen. So again, I hope you took something from today, and I'll pass back over to the lovely Phoebe to wrap things up so we can all get back into the coffee.